from the meeting.
You can stand for the pledge, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Somebody switched the flag on me.
State flag.
Oops. My humble apologies. That's okay. We pledged backwards, but that's okay. Okay. Addition and withdrawals or deletions to the agenda, are there any? Nope. I would like to add one piece to 12F, if I may. That's just a quick legislative update, unless the manager wants to take care of that in his report.
We can do it however you'd like to, Mayor.
Okay, we'll just do it in his report. That'll make it a little bit easier.
Okay.
I'll speak to it then. And the only other change I would recommend is taking, because there are people that may want to speak to the Parks and Parkways, is moving public comments up and then switching the presentation until after public comments, if there's no objection. None noted?
I'm sorry, you want to have public comment before Park and Parkways presentation?
Right, so that way if there's any comments on it, that we can do so then. So there may be some comments prior to the presentation, unless you want to do it afterwards.
I think it's better for them to have the benefit of the information first, and then...
Yes, sure.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, if they haven't seen this online, they need to see it first.
Okay, all right, so we'll withdraw that. Okay, saying there's no request without objection, then the agenda is adopted as submitted. Let's go ahead and have presentations. Mr. Keys.
Just here to present a proposal by the Parks and Parkways Board for the development of the median that's on the other side of 7th Avenue here at 114th Street from City Hall. It was the area that was used partially for hurricane debris storage. The board, one of the members of the board made a proposal, and we discussed it further, and the idea was to have some seating areas that were going to be eventually shady and would just provide a respite for people that were walking by or people in the neighborhood coming and enjoying the space out there. So we came up with this plan. I guess I should say that we're not looking to have this be an entire community-wide gathering space. It's just a neighborhood area, and whoever might pass by might enjoy the opportunity to sit down. And the idea was to have spaces that could be that butterflies and birds would appreciate and could sustain themselves on. So there's 2 large beds here. In that direction is City Hall. That's north. There's 4 large beds of butterfly plants, and we haven't yet developed a specific plant list, but we'll probably do that at our next meeting. And the design isn't specific either. We'll refine the design a little bit more if there's any more substantial plants other than small flowering things that we need to actually establish a location for. And so we have 2 over here, 2 over here. We've drawn in 2 benches here and 2 benches here. That could be 3 benches, it could be 1 bench. That's a point of further discussion. Isn't terribly important in terms of the number to the board. And in addition to the butterfly areas, we have reestablished or strengthened the street tree plan that was already begun when there were still existing Australian pines in here. So there's 3 existing oak trees, one here, and one here. and we had discussions and decided to try to, get a fairly formal array of trees on both sides, so we're matching the oak trees across here, across from this one, and the two new ones here. The end here, one of the points of discussion was whether or not the trees were going to hinder the growth of the plant materials in the butterfly gardens, which generally like a lot of sun. So we came, rather than continue along this route here with oak trees, which have fairly dense canopies, we decided we wanted to replace this one here with a Royal Poinciana, because there was one planted there 2 years ago when the tree that was existing died. And the fact that the canopies of Royal Poincianas are considerably thinner than, and even fairly deciduous in a cooler winter, that more light would come through to these beds and sustain them. So that's why we have 3 Royal Poincianas here. So there'll be a large area of orange flowering trees here, then the oak trees, and then at this end, again, we'll have some flowering tree that we've got a list that we're still discussing. Again, these are going to be a little bit closer to the oak tree, so that's somewhat of a concern. We don't want to have something that's really dense, but bottom line is we haven't decided exactly what we want to put there. It's going to be a flowering tree, however. I think it was important to people in the neighborhood. We have one resident that lives here that came to our meetings and had talked to her neighbors through the course over several different meetings. And after the first proposal, they were a little concerned about the large congregations of people, and we assured them that's not what our goal was. And I think that the development it doesn't lend itself to that. And the other thing was that they liked the idea that there was an open grassy area. So we pulled the beds to either side. There's still a very large area in here. It's probably at least 100 feet from here to here. So there's still open area for kids to run around and play in if they'd like to. That's it. We developed a quick budget, and we'd like to see if the commission would approve expenditures of up to $1,500 for the butterfly plants and $1,250 for the trees. We anticipate the trees being at least 12 foot tall. They're not going to be larger trees, much larger than that, based on our budget. And I'd like also just to consider those numbers as combined between the two needs. We are also looking to see if we can get community involvement to plant the plant materials that we come up with. And also, we're looking to see if the community can donate plants, specific plants that we're going to develop a list that we'd like to have that are suitable for the goal that we're trying to accomplish of attracting butterflies and birds. And so we'd like the village's assistance maybe in putting something up on the webpage that this is a project we're soliciting donations for. The manager indicated that he's going to work out the mechanism of that through the foundation, through the village accounting processes. We're leaving that up to him. And this wasn't an issue that was discussed at the board level, but the possibility of including the benches as something that people could donate for occurred to me prior to this meeting. And although we generally have discussed on the board of not liking the idea of donations on a memorial basis for trees, because those types of plaques and things are difficult to maintain over many years, we probably can affix something there that somebody could donate a bench in honor of somebody, if you so please. And I think that's basically it.
Are there any questions? Seeking none? Thank you.
Okay. Thank
So,
you.
Madam Mayor, are we going to add this to new business then to discuss the requested amount as 12F then?
Yeah, go ahead and add that to 12F. for the budget piece? Okay, we'll go ahead and close presentations and open for public comments. As a reminder, we do have an ordinance reading, so for those of you who want to have comments on the ordinance, you'll have a chance to do that at 9, right before 9A. So go ahead and open for public comments.
Good evening, Dan Samara, 1030 Northeast 121st Street. Through my investigation as a journalist into the situation regarding one of our police officers who has been on paid administrative leave for over 2.5 years, I have learned through my sources that this officer has been fired. Knowing this officer and his integrity, I believe this has been a witch hunt that was created by a former city manager, Heidi Siegel. During my investigation, he was cleared of any wrongdoing by the FDLE and Miami-Dade County State Attorney's Office in October of 2014-2015. The FBI at that time, during this time, not to proceed with any further investigation and sent it back to Biscayne Park to resolve. They determined that if there was any wrongdoing, it was at the local Biscayne Park administration level. We as taxpayers have a right to know the outcome of the investigation done by the agency that was hired by this commission to resolve this situation that has been going on too long. When can we expect to get the results of this investigation, or do I have to put a Freedom of Information request to get the results? And as far as Dan Keyes' thing, I like the park. I like the idea of maybe we can get residents to donate instead of the city paying for any of the trees. I think that'd be a better idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Any other public comments?
Bob Anderson, 11th Place. The presentation from what Danny just presented on the park, I concur. I think it's really, really long overdue. It really looks good. I'm just curious, is there a plan for irrigation for there? Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Janie Anderson, 11th Place, 119th Street. Commissioner Johnson-Sardell, I just want to thank you for bringing forward that item for commission discussion tonight as far as mitigation for those of us who are extraordinarily frustrated trying to keep our swale areas maintained. And yes, those of us on corners probably feel it a little more intensely, particularly if you have a street behind you as I do, because my damage starts on my back corner, continues on 119th, and goes on to the 11th Place corner. But from what I'm hearing, people in Griffin have issues, people on our smaller streets, like 120th, have some issues. School buses, it's not just Race Pro, school buses, FedEx, the mail carriers, and good old cars. I mean, I've been doing yard work in the back and had cars cut that back corner and continue in my swale. We really need something that gets in people's line of sight. Reflective tape is all very nice if it's part of a package. But think about stop bars and stop signs and stop lights. People, they ignore them. It's not a matter of not seeing the road. They're not paying attention to where all their tires are, particularly the back tire. So if we could have kind of a combination, and if we were able to have the reflective sticks, which certainly seem to work in the shores, not that we should be able to build a wall with them. I mean, it needs to be a controlled number, but something that, again, is in people's vision so that we can maintain our swales the way most of us really want them. Again, thank you for bringing it forward, though.
Thank you, Jamie. Anybody else?
Hi, Dan Schneider, 11705 Northeast 11th Place. I just want to ask something about the agenda. The item about cats and encouraging open feeding, is that a mistake? Or a joke?
There's no comments. Continue, please, sir.
Okay, then I just want to say, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I have sent every commissioner and the village manager several emails saying that we have a problem with feral cats. Our mayor, Tracy, you've responded that you agree with me, and you know it's a problem, and you agree that something needs to be done, but you don't want to do anything because you said it wouldn't be popular. Well, that's just ridiculous. Harvey, I'm embarrassed for you tonight, and quite frankly, I'm tired of taking time out of my life to come here and chastise you guys for doing nothing. And finally, when Harvey does something, it's not something that makes us a more livable or attractive place, it's something that actually is detrimental to the village. You guys are a joke, and I don't have time for it anymore. Good night.
Any other public comments?
Matt Kaminsky, I own 6 properties in Biscayne Park. My question is probably to code. In regards to the rental license, why should I pay $95 for each duplex or each unit for someone to come out and see if I have water and electric? Why shouldn't I just be able to give an electric bill and a water bill? I don't know who's in charge of this. Can someone?
We can't comment now, but I'll make sure.
All right, my second question is does that license also include single-family homes that are renting? Okay, how are you going to determine this?
May I ask to help you, Matt, could Manager Manners, would you please get together with him, make sure all his questions are sufficiently answered?
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, it's, again, I can inspect the whole house for $200 and have my roof, termite, plumbing, and electrical done. I'm going to go pay $95 for someone when I can hand them an electrical, my electric bill and my water bill. And if I don't have that on, do you think the tenant would be living there? I just don't understand. I'm going to have someone that's inexperienced, that's a code person, going into my property, which the tenant doesn't have to let them in to start with. And again, it doesn't have to be a tenant, it could be a single-family home renting, so I don't understand the whole thing. If you want to raise money, have me donate a tree or something. I'll spend $50, $60, let every duplex owner, buy a tree for Biscayne Park. So can you look into that?
I'll give you a call tomorrow.
Okay, and the second thing is, why don't we look out of the box with Biscayne Park, since we are a village, people interact in a village, why don't we take all the medians, since they all connect, why don't we look into doing something with mulch as a green town, low voltage lights or solar lights, where we can interact, the medians, connecting each other, wood benches, so there would be no concrete involved, there'll be wood benches, mulch, and solar lights, and the whole city can interact as a village. And taking the medians, because if you look at them, they all somehow connect from 119th to 8th Ave, whatever. Instead of worrying about one little project here, one little project, why don't we interact the city?
Thank you very much, sir.
MacDonald Kennedy, 11705 Northeast 11th Place. Dan, this is awesome. So congratulations on that, and good luck getting that done. And I would hope that this would be the beginning of even more swale development in the city. I agree with Matt. They need to be worked on, and this could just be the start. Okay, so the guy who just left is my partner, and he's really upset about the cats, and so am I. So I want to talk about that as well. Pedestrian safety, fiscal solvency, traffic control, speeding and running of stop signs, median development, code enforcement, emergency communications plan, like after the hurricane when we were all clueless what was happening in the village. That's a partial list of things that I jotted down today very quickly before I came here that need to be addressed in Biscayne Park. They must be addressed in Biscayne Park. And several of you ran for the seats that you're holding up there talking about those issues. Harvey, specifically you. You cornered me in the light bulb aisle at Home Depot one day and gave me a long lesson on all the ways that you were going to control speeding in this town, and that included we can lower the speed limit, we can vote on it, you can't. All the things you were going to do. Yet tonight, in your infinite wisdom, you decide that our legislative priority for 2018 must be the open feeding of cats. It's February. It's the second month of a year. You're more than a year into your term, and this is what we're kicking the year off with. The open feeding of cats. This whole thing for the past couple of days has me so rattled. It's just like, what are you thinking? That's what this town needs. We need more colonies of cats eating food outside. We need to attract more animals to feed in people's yards. The neighbors be damned, the quiet enjoyment of their property be damned when these cats are wandering all over the place. Every morning I wake up, and the first thing I do, I'm not joking, the first thing I do is walk into my fenced-in private backyard where we're constructing a pool and we just put up a tiki hut, and I pick up 3 or 4 piles of cat shit out of my yard. And I'm sorry if that word offends Tracy. What offends me is picking up multiple piles of cat shit every day in my yard before I can let my dogs into my yard.
I understand.
And you want to do things, Harvey, to promote this. It's just completely absurd. It's completely absurd.
Dan Keys. Just going to make a general comment. I think that we might find out that some of the proposals on the agenda tonight are different than what we think they are. And I think that is a cause of us not having an action presented along with the agenda item. If there's something we needed to do regarding backyard feeding of animals, minute summaries, and some of the other items on the agenda, we should have had a resolution prepared, or ordinance prepared, and that should be what you're considering here tonight, not some nefarious discussion item. That's just my opinion.
Thank you.
Chuck Ross, 11166 Griffin Boulevard. Dan, thank you. Good job. I want to bring up something I talked about at the last meeting regarding the appropriation request that was submitted. One of the items that the mayor referred to in defending the actions was a resolution, not an ordinance, called Resolution 2012-43. 2012-43 does not allow the mayor to act alone. It specifies that the mayor may declare a local disaster if provided for by in the charter, which I don't believe it is. I think we need to check into that. However, setting that aside, the entire commission will be well informed and included in the policy-making group. So the mayor can't act alone. The basis for the argument relying on this reso to support the mayor acting in connection with the monitoring contract and the appropriations are not valid. Setting that as, So I think what we need to do is, first of all, take a hard look at that, which is the emergency plan. That's what Resolution 2012-43 is. And I think if a local emergency is going to be declared, I think that shouldn't be the mayor. It should either be the manager or the police chief, for one thing. And clearly, based on, since you use this as your defense, Mayor, you must not have read it. I appreciate it if you would. I have copies of the relevant pages, if you'd like to see them. And setting that aside, the appropriation request, the way it was handled, looks like it got kicked off sometime in late August. It was never brought before the public, as I've mentioned earlier. And it seems like there was plenty of time to bring this to the public, so that we could discuss the ask. There was a number of priorities that the mayor stated that the roadways were the number one priority, which isn't true. I looked at the dots. The dots are the items that when they got together, the commission that being got together and put up dots of which they thought were their priorities. That was one of the top ones, but not the top. The top one was actually digitizing records. Digitizing records got 4 dots. Roadways got 3 dots, as did 5 other things. But the point is that before these things are sent to our lobbyists, they need to be brought to the public and discussed so that it can be hashed out. You can't assume that what you did the prior year, you can just redo. Thank you.
Thank you. Further public comments? No, only one time, sorry.
different topic.
No, I'm sorry, it's one thing. Any other comments?
I'm just telling you, I can tell you, there's people in Biscayne Park,
I'm
there's
sorry.
a small group that looks like they want to control this town, and I'm not going to let it.
Matt.
There's a small group here.
Mac,
You're out of order.
Okay?
Matt.
You, exactly.
thank you. Thank you. Mac, Mr. Kaminsky, please. Mr. Kaminsky, please. Thank you.
I was born at night, but not last night. I see what's happening.
Please,
Shake your head. That's a little group.
please continue.
Good evening, my name is Jocelyn Gary. I live
Would you mind putting the mic so we can hear you? Thank you so much. You're so
My name's
soft-spoken.
Jocelyn Gary. I live on 109th Street, Biscayne Park. I've lived here for 45 years. And it seems like things are getting worse instead of better. Really. And even this thing about the homeowners, the permit, it seems like you just come here to just, most of the people in Biscayne Park don't even want to come anymore. I'll tell you the truth, this is a small crowd. They don't want to come. It's ridiculous. They're going to argue over cats. Well, how many years have those two lived in the park? You're going to worry about the foxes that run around. One was in my yard last night. You're going to worry about all the people that walk their dogs and don't pick up the poop. Okay? I mean, it's like a bunch of old hens. Biddies. Yeah, it is. Acting, like they're, that's it. And just like was brought up, I was wondering why it doesn't stay on here. I mean, there's people that live in the park and other people that used to even work on the commission and everything else. They knew the people that lived here, that they had turned their properties into, their garages into rentals for 30, 40 years. They didn't pay. This is not right. No, it really isn't. And it's very disheartening that there's not too many people in here anymore that, like I said, a lot of people don't want to come anymore. They really don't want to come to the meetings anymore. I'm very dissatisfied the way the Biscayne Park is being run. You're going to worry about cats. You're going to worry about dogs. There's a lady that walks in front of my house every morning at 7 o'clock with her crazy dog, disturbs all the neighbors because I have dogs, and she walks purposely, not purposely, but without consideration to get all the dogs barking. How about the guy that runs on his bicycle with the dog zooming down the street on Saturday, Sunday morning, or at night? He's on a skateboard pulling, and then all the dogs in the houses are going wild. Of course they're going to go wild. Cats are going to go wild. What are you going to do? Next thing you know, let's kill the birds? I mean, it used to be a nice little community. Why don't people get together? It's not, I don't know if it's funny or not, but no. I don't, whether it's funny or not, I don't think it's funny. We live in a nice little village. We all should get together and live like decent human beings that live in this little village like they used to. Now, they're picking on little tiny things. It's unbelievable. Really, it is. The way I live, there's a corner, 10th Avenue and 9th Court. People speed up and down that street like unbelievable. They go around that corner. Why don't they put those, like in the shores, those bumper things in the middle of the street to slow them down? I was almost hit 2 or 3 times. Okay? My daughter, if the
I'm sorry, it's time. Could you please finish up? Thank you.
Before she got hit by one of the garbage trucks on 9th Avenue, one backed into her right over the top of her car.
I'm sorry.
It's true. Look it up. But I'm saying.
I'm so sorry. I have to cut you up. My humble apologies. Thank you very much.
They should do something about it, really. And this should be brought up and outwardly, not by talking to someone individually.
Thank you very, very much. Any further public comments? Public comments are closed. We have updates now for 7A, which is finance.
Good evening. The previous meeting on January 9th, I was able to report to you that we had accomplished our milestones of establishing an ongoing financial system that would be auditable. We accomplished the retirement fund audit, the CITT audit, all of those reports were filed, and also that we had begun the forensic work on the 2016 fiscal year financials, and I also reported that we had gotten to the December time point. Today, I'm pleased to announce that we've progressed exponentially. We're actually through August as of this afternoon. The good news about that is, once you set it up, you get a lot faster. The one negative thing I learned is that you don't get to end on September 30th. You have to go to December. You have to go a couple months into the next fiscal year to make sure you have all the payables and everything. So back to the point of tonight's milestone is that we're pleased that we're on schedule to provide auditable financials for the 2016 to the auditor. I'm hoping maybe middle of next week, so that's great news. The next step, of course, is in the auditor's hand, and we are in regular contact with them, and they fully understand the urgency, so we're pleased to announce that you're on schedule to get that done. I've provided the December financials to the board. I found nothing of remark on them, namely because it's only 3-month sample size, and of course you have months that flow where the expense really fell in the previous month. So you can see the variances looked normal to me, and if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yes. Thanks for the update on the audit. We're all anxious to see that be completed.
Exactly.
So, okay. Just with regard to where we're keeping our money now that a large chunk of the revenues have come in.
Sure, your tax
collector's
revenue,
office.
December, January, right.
Right. So we have a very small amount sitting in a money market account.
Yeah,
And I don't know if it's really the finance position to make that recommendation to the manager, and I also know that we're in the middle of switching banks, but I'd like to see us move to a more prudent way of holding on to those funds so that they're working for us.
Right, my recommended policy is always to sweep out of your operating account $250,000 or above, $250,000 into some interest account. Your monthly burn is not that great, so that's about right. Probably $300,000 would be a max I would shoot for because of the insurance levels and things like that. If you have a policy that I haven't seen one that says don't do that, but I noticed that today in the financials, that's what I would recommend. I would not be surprised if it's already been done because these are through December, you might note, which is the month that most of it was received. So the January cash settlement, I could pull that for you and email it around tomorrow and make sure that is the practice. Now, you do have the option of a money market and the state board. I don't know your policy. Of course, the prudent thing would be to go to the best interest rate and the most flexibility because you're going to be pulling it out every month throughout the fiscal year. So if you don't mind, I will advise quickly what I recommend, and if there's no objections from the manager, we will proceed that way.
Over the years, we've had different finance directors, give their theory of what's the best practice, so...
I think it's really simple.
And some of them have, in the past, have shied away from the state board pool funds. I don't know exactly the reason why, but I just want to make sure that we are looking at that, and now when we switch the accounts, that we switch them to something that'll be more functional and more advantageous for us.
Excellent.
If you want to go ahead, do we have a consensus among the commission to go ahead and have him make recommendations to the manager on how to best do that?
I think that's his job.
Okay, well, he just asked for that, so I would like to go ahead.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's already been done. That's policy in every one of my clients, so I would assume. But again, the financials that I have in front of me are through December, so.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. You have a good evening.
I'm sorry, I had one more question.
You're recognized. Go ahead.
Thank you. With regard to the CITT funds?
Yes.
And it might be because we're not totally caught up and we need to have the audited statements done, so that the numbers are firm. But I'd like to see, and I've asked for it, the differentiation between the transportation funds and the transit funds. Because for the past several years, we have been using some of the transportation money to pay for our lights. Basically, that's about all the funds that we've been expending from that pool.
So you can see what the difference is and have discussion.
So that we can see what actually we have in each of those pockets.
If you don't mind, because of the way the paperwork will work better, is to keep it that way, but have a management summary of that account, a blowout, rather than alter the fund numbers that you have now. If you don't mind, that's how I would recommend it.
Yeah.
But we can do that.
Agree?
That's great, that's great. I know, I just have been asking for it for a couple of weeks, and...
I know as soon as you take a fund and put it on the balance sheet, it wreaks havoc.
Do we have consensus with that? Yes?
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul, one quick question,
Yes, sir.
too. Commissioner Ross actually asked me when we met a couple days ago, CITT funds, can those be swept into an interest-bearing account, or do those have to remain?
Usually they can. I know historically when I worked in municipal finance, we did it all the time, as long as you have approval to do that, and obviously the record. I can double-check that for you.
Okay. If we can confirm that, please.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that certainly is a fund, and it's about
Yeah,
$500,000.
10 years ago, cities were scared to death of putting anything in any fund. Now we're
But
we're
those monies are
interested in making money again.
static, and we don't dip into them very often, so that's a good
Makes
amount of
sense.
money to set aside and
Yeah.
have some interest earned on it.
Got it.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Any other questions? Nope. Thank you, sir.
It is.
Thank you.
Chief Walksley was not able to be here, so that item 7D is being postponed till next meeting. So 7C, code compliance. Ms. Caserta? Sorry, I should have warned you.
Yeah, that's great.
Sorry about that.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. I don't usually throw everything at everybody, just to let you know.
Yes, she does, just to confirm that.
Yeah, that's true. My name is Christina Caserta. I'm the new code enforcement officer who is hired on a part-time basis. Actually, I really enjoy the village. I have been a native Floridian and used to come here as a child. Again, I'm a new part-time employee, and I've been hired based on my experience within the building and zoning enforcement field for over 13 years. I'm also a licensed realtor for 15 years and have served on community boards as a president and treasurer. I have a lot of vast experience in the field. I enjoy what I do, and this helps me to work with you guys because I'm a property owner as well, and I understand the importance of what it is to have your property values be maintained on an all-high. Upon coming into Biscayne Park in October, I found that the department was neglected for years and definitely needed a complete overhaul, which required a lot of changes internally and externally. One of our biggest setbacks was our computer system. That's a really big issue. It was actually tailored for the finance end and not for code enforcement or building and zoning. This has been a very big hurdle to get over. I have been in the office working on this on a daily basis. The program in itself needs to be communicated with the actual programmers to discuss what needs to be enhanced. A lot of those areas have to do with our capability of tracking actual administrative violations, doing daily logs out in the field for us to use, which has not ever been done, entering the data where everybody in the office can see what's happening in one place without bopping all over to different screens. Being able to run reports to give us data totals, I know that that's been a big request. It's been very inefficient for us to be able to do that. I've also had to work with them to be able to input forms to where we could get them auto-populated so we can have that information in place and not have so much time spent actually typing these forms on an individual basis, which has been done in the past. We have improved a lot of the forms that have been out there and been used in the code enforcement sector, and that's been a very, very big issue as well. Right now, we're actually looking to ensure that our deadlines are being met. And one of the things that we have done, or I have done in conjunction with the city manager, and of course Linda Dillon's been very, very helpful, and I appreciate that immensely. Filing system has been improved immensely. We've created new forms. We've improved the existing forms. We have reviewed the process out in the field, which needs improvement. I've found that there were a lot of liens that were not filed. I have encountered duplicate liens. I have had a lot of cases that were old that have been closed out. Elizabeth has been following up, and this goes back to the Reggie days and even beforehand. I've created inspection logs to ensure that there is timely follow-up out in the field, which has not been done in the prior cases. I've put in place that all documents that are actually to stay in the office and not go out in the field with the inspector as they were being done previously. I'm a firm believer that all our documents should stay in the office. The only thing that should be out there are inspection logs. I've also found that in the past, again, way back to even Reggie days, where all the cases were being cited all together, where they should be done separately. So if you have an abandoned vehicle that's being cited here, a painted house is being cited here, over grass is here. So we have 3 different violations versus 1. I've broadened our ability via the computer to be able to pinpoint entries for violations. For example, in the past, all of the violations were being entered as property maintenance. Now, instead of property maintenance, it says for paint. It says for junk. It says for overgrown grass, where before that was just all broadened in the property maintenance area. I've also created a comprehensive code board cover sheet used by us in the code board. I got compliments yesterday that they were very happy with the way that those worked out for them last night, and I'm still going to tweak it a little bit and make it even better. I found that there were administrative citations brought to the code board where they didn't need to go to the code board unless the actual homeowner requested that they be there. So that was a big time waster for the code board and other cases that we could have been bringing to the forefront. I do provide the city manager with weekly reports as he requests. He's wonderful, by the way. And I've ensured that all of the documents that we have in place are actually completely together in one place, and I know that Linda would tell you I'm pretty much anal on that one. Also, I've had to ensure that our deadlines are being met. One of the biggest issues, probably the largest one overall, that I think would lend to a lot of our community residents complaining about is the fact that maybe violations are not being attended to. One of the biggest issues was our BSNA computer program did not allow for us to do any follow-up. Now that we have this inspection log in place that I worked with BSNA to get together and get to the point, we are actually able to follow up on cases in a timely manner versus not following up in a timely manner or not being followed up at all. So now that's a definite game changer all the way around where code enforcement is concerned. I expect everybody to see a big improvement on that level. And we've also improved the forms where we've enhanced the way they look so we look more professional as a village. And they're auto-populated to where we can enter the information, and again, reducing staff's time in the office and letting us be out in the field where we need to be. I have yet to be in the field only on a couple of occasions. Once this is up and running, my expectations are to be out there in the field. Again, we want to ensure the deadlines are being met, which is priority. We want to maintain a professional and personable relationship with the residents. We also want to make sure in the future that the administrative citations that we do issue are actually having the ability to put the amount of the fines into the system where we can actually track how much we are garnering through the collections of those citations. I will give you information on how many administrative citations have been issued. One of our top priorities in the field will be working without a permit. We found that we have a lot of contractors out there who like to do that. So our top priority is going to be working with the building official, making sure that he issues a stop work order, and make sure that we take them to the upcoming board meeting by way of notice of violation versus giving them a courtesy notice, which has been done in the past. So at this point, we will be taking notice of violations out into the field. We will be issuing those right on the spot, and we take them straight to the board. We want to work together as a team and ensure we are both on the same page when we issue violation notices and citations. That's going to include our timelines as well. I'm putting together in place, I've actually got information in place, where we have a timeline for certain items. So when Elizabeth is out in the field, she gives them, let's say, 5 days to comply with a particular item. I do the same exact thing versus all over the page. So we want to have a full plan in place so we're doing the same thing as a team. We will be replacing the courtesy notices with door hanger notices once we phase out the old forms so we do not waste those old forms. We're going to be looking at the investment properties since they are a lot of absentee owners, and we feel that the investment properties are going to need to be looked at more closely and discussed with those residents and the owners to make sure that they're maintaining those properties. Okay, and also with the computer system, again, it's being tailored to work with us, again, much more, I can't think of the word, to streamline, okay, I'm trying to think of the word, to streamline how we're entering data, and again, to keep us in the field, not in the office. Landlord permit reminders have been sent out via the administrative department. Just want to, keep you all up to date with respect to that. We've had administrative citations that have been in the files for quite some time, probably about a year and a half, and we are actually sending out notices of reminders. We've had all that done. Again, thank you, Linda. Our main goal as a code compliance officer, just so everybody understands, is that we want to get voluntary compliance. We don't want to take the residents to the board if we don't have to. But in the event that somebody cannot comply or does not want to comply, then we do have to take them to the board, unfortunately. I believe that when I have been out in the field, one of the most indispensable tools that is out there is to have personal face-to-face communication with the residents. If you're going to put a courtesy notice at the residents, knock on the door first and speak with them. To me, I feel like that's one of the most important things we could do. That also helps to achieve compliance. It's an excellent tool. You also create a relationship with that individual that in the future, when you talk to them, you're going to most likely get compliance right on the spot if they can move that car. We cannot always guarantee compliance, unfortunately. You may see properties that remain out there that have been blighting the neighborhood for quite some time. Unfortunately, we can't make somebody drink the water if they don't want to. So what we do have in place, which I'm sure everybody does know, in those cases we do take them to the board and we do put a lien on the property. The code enforcement board does look at the properties, they look at the violation, and they say, okay, this is where we're at. They could do daily fines depending on what the violator is, repeat or first time. They have the ability to actually put higher fines on them. On a last note, I've received wonderful direction from our village manager, who has had a great pulse on the community and has gotten his input on each area that I've tackled to do and improve in our division. He's been very, very instrumental. Once I'm officially out in the field, we will be addressing violations on a much more larger scale and hope to gain more compliance in a village that you can all be proud of. I did put a box over there for any type of comments, any kind of violations I'd like to see overall with the community, what they feel is the most important for us to address, so we could look at that sometime this week. If it's painting, if it's driveways, whatever you feel, please put that in there. But keep in mind, it has to be code enforcement related. Let me just... Where did those things go? I apologize, give me just a moment. Right here in my hands. I'm a horrible public speaker, I'm just gonna say. Okay. Okay, I'm going to do this on an 8-month basis because I feel like in June to today's date would be fair. So I'm going to go back to 2017 for the commissioners to understand from 2017 of November to May 31st. The total number of violations you had was 496 violations, 57 of those being administrative citations.
Could you repeat that one more time?
I'm sorry?
Could you repeat that one more time, please?
Okay, absolutely. Okay. From November of 2016, I apologize, 2016 to May 31st, 2017, there have been a total of 496 violations, with a total of 57 of those being administrative citations. Again, that's from November of 2016 to May 31st, 2017. From June 2017 to current date, there has been a total of 838 violations, a total amount of 207 administrative citations, keeping in mind that also Hurricane Irma did hit. So that also placed our officer, away from the duties that she needed to do because she had to work very closely with FEMA. I expect these numbers to double and then possibly even go into triple digits once I'm out in the field. Hopefully, they don't have to. Hopefully, we have people that are willing to keep their properties in compliance. But I think that includes everything. That includes everything. Trash is one of those that really does receive the majority of our administrative citations. Some of our common code violations or permit violations, that's work without a permit, and when that happens, they do get slapped with double fees. So it would be in their best interest to obtain a permit prior to working. Another common violation is property maintenance, cleanup, trash and debris, trash cans left out by the roadside, overgrown in grass and weeds, fences, inoperable abandoned vehicles, objects in the right-of-way, parking on grass. We have a lot of administrative citations for that. Storm shutters were prevalent after the hurricane, watercraft storage, signs, and address numbers being displayed. Address numbers is one of the most important things, being as that is a tool for emergency vehicles to identify the property. That is what has presented itself on our actual reports. So I figured I'd highlight those issues for you. That's pretty much it.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Could you brought up about the address?
I noticed, which I've noticed for years, but the last 10 days, there's been two emergency vehicles, fire department, whatever, they couldn't get through Biscayne Park because they come like on 109th, wherever they think they can get through, they go all over, even with a police officer in a car the other day trying to lead him out, but he couldn't. Many times I've gone out there and showed him how you get out of the park. So I don't know why their thing and their truck doesn't show them there's no way out except 107th and 125th.
I'm going to...
Yeah, that's not issue, but it's not a code enforcement item, but I agree with you.
But I mean, maybe somebody could call and ask them why, because whoever was sick on the other side twice in the last 10 days on the other side of the track.
Yeah.
They kept going round and round. I mean, I don't know who to call.
That's something we can look into.
I was concerned, this is not open for public comments at this point. I apologize, she wasn't aware of that. But what we might be able to do to help everybody out, because I know there's a lot of questions, and I know we'd like to do that, I'm going to offer a 5-minute recess, and so that if you may answer any questions, you may do that, and that way you can do that and then go as well. So I'm going to ask for a 5-minute recess if there's no objection.
Sounds wonderful. And the other thing I'd like to offer everybody is if you'd like to write down my email. My email is Caserta, and that's C-A-S as in Sam, E-R-T-A @BiscayneParkFL.gov. Please email me directly with any questions, as I don't monitor next door, and the code email, I don't use it as my primary email, so I may not get back to you in a timely manner. If you email me directly, I promise a response within 24 hours.
And this will give you all a chance to meet Officer Caserta, and we'll take a 5-minute recess. Thank you.
Thanks.